There comes a moment in every person's life where words fail, not because they're weak, but because silence has become stronger. You've walked into rooms where eyes turned, not because of what you said, but because of who you were. That presence, that energy, that's not arrogance, that's power. That's what happens when your soul has weathered storms and your heart carries the weight of wisdom unspoken. You see, in a world that's too loud, too quick to talk, and too desperate to be heard, the one who stands still, the one who listens, the one who moves with intention commands the room. Without shouting, without begging, without chasing. Respect isn't demanded, it's earned in your silence, your stillness, and your unshakable sense of self. Fear, it's not about intimidation, it's about conviction. When people feel the gravity of your presence, when your eyes speak louder than your voice ever could, that's when they begin to wonder, who is this person? What have they seen? What do they know? This is the art of commanding fear and respect without uttering a single word. The moment you walk into a room, before you've spoken a single word, before you've introduced yourself or extended your hand, your energy has already arrived. It walks in ahead of you. It lingers behind you. It speaks louder than your voice ever could, and whether you realize it or not, people are reading it, they're feeling it, they're reacting to it. That's the unspoken language of presence. You don't need to be loud to be felt. You just need to be aligned. When your spirit, your confidence, and your self-respect are in harmony, it creates a force around you that cannot be ignored. People sense when you know who you are. They sense when you've been through something and came out standing. You don't need to explain yourself. You just need to show up carrying the energy of someone who doesn't flinch when life hits back. Every scar, every mistake, every lesson, carry that in your walk. Don't hide from your story. Wear it with quiet pride. Because what you've endured, what you've overcome, becomes part of the atmosphere around you. You don't have to brag about it. You don't have to announce your strength. Let your stillness do the talking. When your shoulders don't sag from regret, when your eyes don't blink in insecurity, people notice. They might not know what it is, but they feel it. They feel that gravity, that pull, that depth. That's because your energy is anchored, not floating. You're not waiting for validation. You're not craving attention. You've already claimed your worth internally. And that energy, that's what commands both respect and a quiet kind of fear. Not fear of you, but fear of not being able to shake the impression you leave behind. You don't have to perform for anyone. Let go of the pressure to impress. Influence doesn't come from performance. It comes from presence. And presence is built in the private moments when no one's watching. When you're by yourself and you decide to keep building, to keep growing, to keep showing up. That work you do in silence, it becomes your signature. It builds a kind of self-trust that radiates outward. People don't follow those who scream the loudest. They follow those who carry themselves like they've already done the work, already earned the ground they're standing on. And when you walk in carrying that kind of internal foundation, people don't just see you, they feel you. Your energy becomes a mirror showing others what they lack. And make no mistake, this kind of energy cannot be faked. You can dress it up, you can rehearse your lines, you can mimic the walk, but real presence doesn't come from acting, it comes from alignment. Alignment with your values, alignment with your purpose. When what you believe, what you speak, and how you move are all telling the same story, you become undeniable. People can sense when someone is real, when someone's spirit is rooted and unwavering. And the most powerful part, you don't even need to speak. Your presence will speak for you. The way you carry yourself tells the world, I've seen the dark and I didn't lose my light. That's a language the soul understands. That's what makes people stop and take notice. Your energy is not about dominance, it's about certainty. The certainty that you don't need to be anyone else but you. The world will try to pull you out of that. It'll try to shape you, shame you, shrink you. But when you've mastered the energy you carry, you become immune to all that noise. You know who you are, you've lived with your pain, you've learned from your falls, and you no longer need to convince the world to see you. You walk in peace, and peace is powerful. People fear what they don't understand, and they respect what they can't break. When you carry peace within chaos, calm in the storm, you become the anchor in a drifting world. That's rare. That's magnetic. That's unforgettable. Too many people spend their lives chasing the spotlight thinking attention equals respect, but it doesn't. What earns respect is the energy that enters the room before you do and the silence that follows when you leave. It's not the applause, it's the presence. When you walk tall, not because you're better than anyone, but because you fought to be who you are, it shows. When you listen more than you speak, when you nod instead of needing to dominate, you're no longer fighting for respect, you're living in it. And people feel that. They recognize the difference between someone who needs to be heard and someone who is worth listening to. That difference lies in the energy you carry. It's not always about looking powerful, it's about feeling powerful in your own skin. You don't need to puff your chest or flex your ego. Quiet confidence is a storm in still water. And when people sense that you're not easily shaken, that your mood isn't swayed by the room, but rather you set the tone, they begin to adjust themselves around you. That's real influence. That's the kind of energy that shifts conversations, that calms tension, that draws people in. Because in a world where everyone's trying to be seen, the one who remains grounded becomes the one who leads. You don't do it with noise, you do it with calm, with clarity, with control. And that right there is what fear and respect are built on. So when you walk into any place, from a boardroom to a street corner, know this: your energy is your armor. Your energy is your message. It's your silent declaration to the world: I am not here to impress you. I am here because I belong here. And the more you master that energy, the less you'll need to explain anything. People will just know. They'll feel it in the air. And that's when you've truly arrived. Not when they hear your voice, but when they feel your presence. Without a word, without a sound, just your energy, steady, strong, and unforgettable. That's the real strategy. That's how you command fear. That's how you earn respect. Quietly, powerfully, unshakably. There's a dangerous myth out there that silence equals weakness. That if you're not the loudest in the room, you'll get overlooked. That if you're not constantly speaking up, you'll be forgotten. But the truth is, real power doesn't need to announce itself. Silence doesn't mean you've disappeared. It means you're choosing to observe, to absorb, to hold your ground with intention. When you choose to be silent, you're not removing yourself from the moment. You're becoming more present. People think silence is absence, but it's actually depth. It's presence turned inward. It's the art of being fully there without the need to perform. When everyone's shouting to be seen, the one who stands still becomes the one everyone notices, not because of what they said, but because of what they didn't say. And yet they were undeniably there. You felt them. That's not silence. That's power and restraint. Silence gives you clarity. It creates space between you and the chaos. When everyone else is reacting, you're watching. You're studying. You're listening. You're gathering every piece of information without wasting your energy. That's not being passive. That's being intentional. Because sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when to say nothing and let the world reveal itself to you. In those moments, you're not absent. You're awake. You're watching patterns unfold. You're seeing people for who they truly are, not who they pretend to be. And when you remain calm, when your face doesn't flinch, when your body doesn't fidget, people don't know what to do with you. Your silence makes them question themselves. Your stillness becomes their mirror. And suddenly your lack of response speaks louder than any argument you could have made. You are still, but you are not small. You are silent, but you are undeniably present. There's an art to taking up space without making noise, to being the one who doesn't interrupt, doesn't over-explain, doesn't shout for attention, but still commands it. You see, presence isn't just about volume, it's about energy. When you know who you are, when you're not trying to prove yourself to anyone, your silence becomes heavy with meaning. You walk into a room and people feel it. They feel your awareness, your discipline, your self-control. You're not absent, you're focused. And that focus changes the atmosphere. People don't need to hear your story to respect your journey. They can sense you've been through things that words could never describe. That's the kind of silence that's unforgettable. The kind that doesn't beg for attention but draws it. People wonder what you know, what you've seen, and why you don't need to speak. That mystery is magnetic, That's the influence of showing up without noise. When you learn to master this silence, you'll notice something powerful. People start reacting to your energy instead of your words, and that's when you know you've reached another level of presence. You're no longer chasing approval. You're no longer trying to convince anyone of anything. Your being is the message. Your calm demeanor in a world full of chaos speaks volumes. Your silence doesn't mean you're disengaged. It means you've elevated. While others are scrambling to be heard, you're sitting in the center, grounded, anchored, unshaken, and in doing so, you draw people in without lifting a finger. The truth is, absence is when you disconnect from your purpose. Silence, on the other hand, is when you connect so deeply with it that you don't need to say a word. You don't need to fill space. You are the space. And that makes people lean in, not look away. People don't always remember what you say, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And when you're silent but fully present, the feeling you leave behind is different. It's rare. It's grounding. It's unforgettable. You become the one they look to when things fall apart. You become the calm in the storm, not because you said the right thing, but because you were the right energy. And energy doesn't need a microphone. It just needs alignment. Silence becomes your strategy. You wait, you watch, you strike with precision when it matters. And when you do speak, people stop and listen. Why? Because you're not always talking. You've made your words rare. And anything rare becomes valuable. You've transformed your silence from a void into a force. And now people know that when you do choose to speak, it means something. It's not empty. It's full of thought, full of weight in relationships, in business, in leadership. This ability to be silent but not absent becomes your greatest advantage. You learn to read people. You learn to listen between the lines. You become the one who doesn't react out of emotion but responds out of wisdom. And that wisdom, it didn't come from always speaking up. It came from observing, from reflecting, from learning. Your silence gave you room to grow, and now your presence carries that growth with it. Others may confuse your quietness for shyness or even weakness, but let them, because while they're making noise, you're building power. While they're seeking attention, you're earning respect. While they're burning out, you're becoming untouchable. Because you never left, you just didn't need the spotlight to shine. You became the foundation everyone else eventually stands on. You were silent, but you were never gone. One of the most misunderstood forms of strength is restraint. In a world that rewards fast talk and instant reactions, your ability to wait becomes a superpower. You don't need to interrupt. You don't need to outshine. Your silence becomes a filter. It protects your peace. It sharpens your focus. It keeps you one step ahead. And in that stillness, you're making decisions, you're mapping outcomes, you're seeing the bigger picture. They may not hear from you often, but when they do, it lands different. It cuts through the noise. Because your silence has given your voice value. Every room you walk into, you don't chase attention, you change the temperature. That's not absence. That's influence. You never had to compete because you built a presence that didn't rely on sound. You mastered how to be felt, not just heard. And that's the kind of power the world doesn't teach, but it remembers. So don't ever let the world make you feel like silence is something you need to fix. You don't need to be louder to matter. You don't need to raise your voice to lead. You just need to be all the way there. Attentive, grounded, aware. Your silence doesn't mean you're invisible. It means you're intentional. You don't speak unless it's necessary. You don't move unless it's with purpose. And people respect that. They sense that. Because while noise comes and goes, presence remains. And your presence, shaped in silence, speaks to something deeper than words ever could. It says, I'm here. I'm grounded. I'm not here to perform. I'm here to own this moment. And when you walk like that, breathe like that, exist like that, no one can deny that you've mastered what it means to be silent but never absent. They say the eyes are the windows to the soul, but most people never learn how to truly use them. In a world that relies so heavily on words, we forget the raw power of a single glance. Your eyes carry history, pain, triumph, and silence that screams louder than voices ever could. When your mouth is closed and your energy is still, your eyes do the talking, and they never lie. That's why they're powerful. You can't fake truth in the eyes. You can't hide betrayal, loyalty, or wisdom. Your eyes can stop someone in their tracks. They can calm a storm or ignite a fire. They can make someone feel seen or make someone feel small. And the more grounded you are in yourself, the more your eyes begin to reflect something untouchable, something real, something that makes people pause because they feel what you've been through without you ever saying a word. Think about how many times you've walked into a room and felt someone's energy before they even spoke. It wasn't their body language. It wasn't their tone. It was the look in their eyes, the way they scanned the room, not from fear, but from awareness, not from insecurity, but from depth. Your eyes are storytellers. They speak on your behalf. And when they're aligned with inner strength, people can feel it. They can't explain it, but they know there's something different about you. You don't need to announce your presence. Your eyes already have. You don't need to explain your boundaries. Your gaze already drew the line. When someone tries to test you, your eyes tell them, I've been through things you wouldn't survive, and I'm still standing. That silent power commands respect. Because people don't always respond to words, but they always respond to truth. And your eyes carry all of it. The secret is to be so rooted in who you are that your eyes never shift out of fear. They move with purpose. They look people in the soul, and they don't blink when things get uncomfortable. That's strength. That's presence. Your eyes should show people that you're not here to be accepted. You're here to stand. And you're not hiding, you're not pretending, you're not trying to impress. You're awake, alert, and locked into reality. That gaze speaks to something ancient in people, something primal. It tells them, this one sees through the games. This one doesn't flinch. This one carries discipline. When your eyes speak that way, people watch their words around you. They respect your space, they listen closer, not because you forced them to, but because your eyes made it impossible to look away. That kind of silent communication is a weapon, and the wise know how to wield it without ever lifting a voice. You ever notice how the strongest people in the room aren't always the loudest? They don't need to dominate the conversation because they dominate the atmosphere. Their eyes are calm, but there's something behind them, something unshaken, something heavy. That's what separates leaders from noisemakers. When your eyes speak from a place of peace, people feel safe around you. When they speak from pain turned into wisdom, people respect you. When they speak from self-awareness, people trust you. Your eyes become your leadership, not because you demand it, but because you embody it. They show that you've done the work, that you faced your demons, that you don't need to prove yourself anymore. And when people can see that in you, they follow you without needing to be told. That's the influence of a quiet soul and a powerful gaze. It builds trust without a speech and earns loyalty without a performance. But let's not pretend it's easy. To let your eyes speak with authority, you have to earn that gaze. You have to go through the fire. You have to be broken, humbled, and rebuilt. You have to survive things that tried to bury you and walk out stronger. That's what gives your eyes depth. That's what gives your presence weight. You can't fake that. You can't pretend you've been through storms if your eyes don't show it. People will know. They can sense when someone is carrying real experience versus borrowed confidence. And the beauty of that struggle is that it sharpens your awareness. It makes your eyes see more. You start noticing what others miss. You pick up on energy, on motives, on hidden pain in others because you've lived it. And suddenly your eyes don't just speak, they understand. They speak with empathy and power at the same time. That's rare. You've got to be intentional about how you let your eyes work. Are they distracted, shifting constantly, or are they focused, still, unmoved by surface level distractions? Your eyes tell the world whether you're grounded or scattered. When you focus on someone with presence, not intimidation, but purpose, they feel it. They feel acknowledged. They feel respected. And even when you don't agree with them, your eyes let them know you see them. That's influence. That's impact. You're not just floating through life. You're locked in. And when someone tries to manipulate, control, or deceive you, your eyes don't need to say a word. They'll see in your gaze that you're not the one. You've already decoded the situation. You're steps ahead. Because your eyes have learned to speak not just with emotion, but with strategy. That's what separates emotional reactivity from emotional intelligence. And that's what makes people take you seriously without you raising your voice. In relationships, professional, personal, even spiritual, the most powerful thing you can do is show up with eyes that reflect truth. Not performative truth, but lived in, honest, unshakable truth. People crave authenticity, and they can spot it before you ever speak. When you carry peace in your eyes, you become a refuge. When you carry fire, you become a boundary. When you carry focus, you become an example. And people start watching you not for entertainment, but for alignment. You become the one they come to when they need clarity, because your eyes say, I'm not caught in the chaos. I'm anchored. I'm present. I'm real. And that is what makes you unforgettable. Not the noise you made, but the stillness you embodied. That's how legacies are built, not just by what you say, but by what people feel in your presence. And that presence, it's locked in the eyes. So the next time you feel tempted to over-explain, to prove yourself, to shout just to be heard, pause, look inward. Remember that the most commanding form of expression doesn't always come through your mouth, it comes through your eyes, through the way you observe instead of react, through the way you listen instead of interrupt, through the way you walk into a space not asking for validation, but bringing value. When your eyes carry purpose, integrity, and presence, you don't need to beg for attention, you already own it. And the most beautiful thing is, the world will remember you, not for your noise, but for your stillness. Not for how loud you shouted, but for how powerfully you saw. That's the difference between making an impression and making an impact. Let your eyes say the rest. There's a difference between movement and progress. A lot of people are in motion, but they're not going anywhere that matters. They're chasing validation, clout, attention, loud in every room, visible on every platform, but empty on the inside. They make noise because they think that's how you get seen. But real influence doesn't come from chaos. It comes from clarity. You don't have to announce every step if the path you're on is real. You don't have to explain yourself when you're already aligned. Purpose moves differently. It's quieter. It's more focused. It doesn't need applause. It needs discipline. When you move with purpose, you learn to be intentional about where you spend your energy, who you allow into your life, and what you choose to pursue. You start walking like every step matters, because it does. Noise can impress for a moment. Purpose leaves an echo long after you're gone. There's a certain silence that follows a person with direction. It's not arrogance, and it's not passiveness. It's power under control. You see, when you move with purpose, you stop explaining every decision. You stop defending your path. You stop trying to win approval from people who don't even understand your destination. And you start walking with a steady rhythm, eyes focused, soul anchored. The world tries to distract you, pulling your attention toward trends, opinions, and unnecessary battles. But when your purpose is clear, your movement becomes precise. You don't move just to react. You move to build. You move to align. You move to become. There's no panic in purpose. There's no desperation in direction. And people feel that. They may not understand it, but they can't ignore it. Because it's rare. It's rare to see someone who isn't chasing noise, but carrying peace. Someone who isn't trying to be seen, but trying to serve. Purpose requires patience. And that's where most people fall off, because noise moves fast. It feels urgent. It's about the next post, the next reply, the next moment of attention. But purpose moves in seasons. It takes time. It's not glamorous in the beginning. It's lonely, it's quiet, and it's often misunderstood. But that's how you know it's real. You learn to value the unseen hours, the nights where you're grinding in silence, the mornings where you rise with discipline, not dopamine, the moments when nobody's clapping, but you keep showing up because you're not fueled by noise. You're driven by something deeper, something sacred, something personal. When you build your life on that foundation, you can't be shaken by criticism or rejection or delays, because your movement isn't rooted in the external. It's coming from within. And when the world sees the fruit later, they won't know how long the roots were growing in the dark. Sometimes the loudest one in the room is the most lost. They're loud because they need attention to survive. But when you're secure in who you are and why you're here, you don't need to shout. Your presence speaks before you open your mouth. People feel it. It's not ego. It's alignment. You've done the inner work, and now your outer steps are matching your soul's direction. That kind of quiet confidence is rare, but it's magnetic. People start watching you not because you entertain, but because you embody something real. And that's the whole point. Your life becomes your message. Your consistency becomes your volume. Your discipline becomes your testimony. And instead of talking about the life you want, you're living it. That's the shift. That's the moment when your motion turns to momentum. Because now, you're not running in circles, you're building a legacy. One deliberate step at a time. It's tempting to perform, to chase applause, to keep up with what everyone else is doing. But moving with purpose means you're okay being different. You're okay going against the crowd. You're okay being misunderstood because you're no longer addicted to being liked. You're committed to being true. Purpose will isolate you. It will stretch you. It will test you. But it will also refine you. It'll teach you that real fulfillment doesn't come from external noise. It comes from knowing that every step you take is aligned with who you are becoming. It comes from walking away from things that used to define you and stepping into rooms where you don't need to prove yourself. You just show up. And your energy does the rest. You're not here to blend in. You're here to rise up. Not to impress, but to impact. Not to echo others, but to walk in your own frequency. Every time you move with purpose, you teach the world how to treat you. You teach people what you tolerate, what you stand for, what you protect. You become the standard. Not because you told them, but because you showed them. That's what purpose does. It aligns your values with your actions. It keeps you from compromising when things get tough. And it keeps you grounded when success shows up. Noise fades. People forget what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. They remember the calm in your walk, the certainty in your eyes, the peace in your silence. That's how influence is built. That's how respect is earned. Not by how much you say, but by how you carry yourself when no one's watching. Every silent decision, every unseen sacrifice, every patient step, it all adds up. And over time, people begin to see this one moves different. This one is called the danger of noise is that it distracts you from your own voice. You start moving based on reaction, not reflection. You chase what looks good instead of what feels right. But purpose brings you back home. It teaches you to pause before you post, to think before you speak, to breathe before you break. It reminds you that stillness isn't weakness, it's strategy. And when you learn to be still, you become more dangerous because you're no longer moved by chaos. You're no longer shaken by opinions. You've developed inner clarity, and now your external actions are intentional. That's how you protect your peace and preserve your power. You stop chasing every trend and you start becoming timeless. You stop needing to be everywhere and you start becoming effective where you are. That's the strength of moving with purpose. It narrows your focus and magnifies your impact one quiet step at a time. If you truly want to change your life, stop measuring your growth by how loud your life looks. Measure it by how aligned your soul feels. Start moving with decisions that cost you comfort but return you integrity. Start surrounding yourself with people who value depth over drama, focus over fame. Let your work speak louder than your words. Let your peace speak louder than your posts. Let your silence speak louder than your status. And above all, remember this. Your purpose was never meant to compete with noise. It was meant to rise above it. Walk like you know where you're going. Move like you know what you're building. And live like your legacy starts now, not someday. Because it does. Every quiet, intentional step forward is proof that you're no longer chasing attention, you're walking in alignment. And that's the kind of movement no noise can match. There is a sacred strength in holding your tongue until the moment is right. Too many people talk just to fill the silence, trying to be heard before they've earned the weight behind their words. But when you move with discipline, when your mind is focused and your heart is anchored, you learn something powerful. Not every moment demands your voice. Not every conversation needs your opinion. Real influence is not built by how often you speak, but by the impact of the few times you do. When you speak only when necessary, people lean in. They listen because they know you're not wasting words. You're delivering truth. You carry a presence that says, I've watched, I've waited, and now I'm ready. And when that moment comes, when the silence breaks and your voice rises, it doesn't just land, it hits, it shakes the ground, it echoes. It commands attention without asking. The most powerful people in the room are rarely the loudest. They are the most grounded, the most observant, the most intentional. They sit back, they listen, they take notes, not because they're timid, but because they're preparing. Every word they eventually speak is built from layers of understanding, not impulses of emotion. That's why when they finally speak, it cuts through the noise like a blade. It's not about volume, it's about value. Speaking like thunder doesn't mean being aggressive. It means being undeniable. It means that your words strike with such clarity, such truth, that people remember them long after the conversation ends. Thunder doesn't apologize. It doesn't whisper, but it doesn't come without a storm forming in silence first. So when your words are few but rich in conviction, they change the temperature of the room. That's power. That's leadership. That's the kind of voice that carries through doubt, through resistance, through walls. You've got to understand something. Every unnecessary word you speak can dilute the strength of the words that really matter. When you're always explaining, defending, correcting, improving, you turn your power into noise. But when you speak only after reflection, when you allow silence to mature your perspective, your words carry authority. They're not just heard, they're felt. They hold weight because they're rare. We live in a world addicted to sound. Everyone's broadcasting, few are actually saying something worth remembering. But you weren't made to be part of the chatter. You were made to be a turning point in the conversation. And turning points aren't built on repetition, they're built on timing. It's not how fast you reply, it's how true your reply is. And sometimes the strongest move isn't to speak first, it's to speak last with such finality that nothing else needs to be said after. That's the difference between noise and thunder. There's a calmness that surrounds a person who knows they don't need to speak to be respected. Their silence doesn't feel weak, it feels loaded. You can sense it. You can feel the presence of someone who's disciplined their voice like a weapon, keeping it sharp, concealed, ready for when it's needed most. And when it finally breaks the quiet, it doesn't just change the mood, it changes the direction. That kind of voice doesn't come from a place of insecurity. It comes from truth. From a soul that has wrestled with its own storms, found clarity, and now speaks only when that clarity can bring light. You don't speak for applause. You speak for purpose. You speak to heal, to correct, to guide, to declare, not to impress, not to be liked. And in doing so, your voice carries something that can't be faked. Integrity. And that integrity is what makes your words strike like thunder in a world of whispers. To speak like thunder, you have to live in the silence long enough to know what matters. You have to be still enough to hear your own spirit, not the noise of the crowd. Because when your speech is born out of pressure, not purpose, it lacks fire. But when it's born out of deep conviction, out of unshakable principles, it becomes unbreakable. Your words become declarations, not suggestions. They become boundaries, not requests. And people can feel the fire in them, even when you say little. The quieter you are, the more intentional your speech becomes. You start valuing your voice as a gift, not just a habit. And when you finally let it be heard, it's no longer about what others think. It's about what needs to be said. The world needs less noise and more thunder. Less performance, more presence. You don't speak to fit in. You speak to shift the room. Let your silence do the gathering and your words do the finishing. Gather wisdom, gather perspective, gather strength. Then, when it's time, speak like someone who's been through the fire and came out carrying truth. Because your voice is sacred. Every word you speak has the potential to create or destroy, to build or break. So why waste it? Why give it away for free to people who don't value it? Or in moments that don't matter. Save your thunder for the storms that matter. Save your voice for the truth that changes people. Let others ramble. Let others chase attention. You're not in that race. Your voice is a tool of that purpose, not a toy for attention. And when you release it, let it be with precision, like a lightning strike across the sky. Sudden, sharp, and unforgettable. You don't need to speak to be seen. You don't need to speak to be felt. But when you do speak, speak like someone who has seen the cost of truth and chose it anyway. Speak with the kind of depth that comes from struggle. Speak with the kind of boldness that comes from healing. Speak with the kind of honesty that breaks chains. Because that's what thunder does. It doesn't just make noise, it wakes people up. It makes them stop. It reminds them that something greater is moving. Let that be you. Let your voice be a reminder of power wrapped in patience, of fire wrapped in discipline, of love wrapped in truth. The world doesn't need more talk, it needs more truth. And truth doesn't always need to shout. It just needs to be spoken at the right moment with the right tone by the right soul. When you carry thunder in your spirit, you don't need to raise your voice. You just need to raise your standard. You just need to speak when the room needs direction, not distraction. You just need to say the one thing that brings clarity to the confusion. That's what separates leaders from noisemakers. A leader's voice is never wasted. It's never used to stroke ego. It's used to elevate vision, to protect peace, to honor purpose. So don't rush to speak. Don't compete for attention. Wait, watch. Let your silence sharpen your insight. And when it's time, speak with fire, speak with courage, speak with thunder. Because one sentence spoken from truth, from wisdom, from deep alignment can do more than 1,000 empty speeches. Let your voice shake the room, not because it's loud, but because it's real. And let it be known, you may not speak often, but when you do, everything shifts. When you know who you are, the world can't shake you. It might try, it might come at you with distractions, lies, rejection, and noise, but you won't flinch because your identity isn't up for negotiation. See, too many people walk around trying to find themselves in the opinions of others. They shape their worth by how they're treated, how they're perceived, or whether they're accepted. But that's not identity. That's insecurity wearing a mask. When your soul is anchored, when you've looked yourself in the mirror and faced the truth of who you are, you walk different. You carry a quiet fire. You're not desperate for validation. You're not shaken by rejection. You're not thrown off by false praise or cheap criticism. Because you already know who you are before they say a word. And when you know that, truly know that nobody can touch you, that's real power. That's real peace. Being unshakable in your identity doesn't mean being perfect. It means being honest. It means showing up in every room with the same spirit, whether they applaud you or ignore you. You're not performing. You're not pretending. You're not trying to impress people who don't even know your battles. You stand tall not because you're proud, but because you're planted. You know where your roots are. You know what you've survived. You know what it took to become the person you are today. And you won't let the temporary voices of this world rewrite the truth God put in you. So many fall apart because they never took the time to build the foundation of self-worth. But you've done the work. You've faced your demons. You've embraced your scars. And now you wear your truth like armor. That's why the storms come, but they don't move you. The winds blow, but they don't bend you. You are steady. You are unshakable. People will always try to redefine you. They'll try to label you based on your mistakes, your past, your failures, your weaknesses. But let me tell you something. The world's opinion of you is not your identity. It's noise. It's background static. And if you let it, it will drown out your purpose. That's why you've got to be firm about who you are. You've got to wake up every day and choose truth over trend. Choose self-worth over self-doubt. Choose your calling over their comfort. Because being unshakable doesn't happen by accident, it happens by decision. It's a mindset, it's a discipline. It's saying, I know who I am and I refuse to become less just to be accepted more. Let them misunderstand you, let them doubt you, let them talk, but never, ever let them define you. Your identity is not on loan to public opinion, it's yours. Own it like it's sacred, because it is. When your identity is secure, you stop chasing approval. You stop needing to explain yourself to people who were never meant to understand you. You stop shrinking just to make others comfortable. You don't water yourself down anymore. You show up in full. You speak with clarity, not apology. You walk with peace, not performance. Because identity gives you alignment. And alignment gives you authority. You know what you stand for. You know what you'll fight for. You know what you'll walk away from. That kind of confidence isn't loud, it's undeniable. It doesn't need to dominate a room to be respected. It just exists. And people feel it. They feel your groundedness. They feel your integrity. And even if they can't explain it, they know you're not someone who's easily moved. That's what makes you different. That's what sets you apart. Your identity isn't a costume you wear, it's the truth you live. You can't buy identity, you can't borrow it, you can't fake it. It's something you build in silence, in struggle, in solitude. It's forged in the fire of heartbreak, failure, disappointment, and it's sealed with the decision to rise anyway. Every time you refuse to compromise your values just to fit in, you were shaping your identity. Every time you chose growth over comfort, purpose over popularity, faith over fear, you were becoming unshakable. You didn't get here by chance. You got here by choosing not to lose yourself in a world that profits from your confusion. And now you walk with that earned sense of self. You're not here to fit in. You're here to shine with a clarity that makes other people question their own masks. That's why your silence speaks louder than their opinions. That's why your presence holds power. You are who you say you are, not who they think you are. When you're unshakable, you stop running from your past You don't hide your journey, you honor it. You look at the pain, the loss, the lessons, and you say, that made me. You don't carry shame, you carry wisdom. You don't carry fear, you carry fuel. Because everything you went through was shaping you into someone stronger, deeper, realer. And now that you know that, you don't need permission to be yourself. You don't need validation to be whole. You've walked through fire and came out with clarity. You've been overlooked and came out with resilience. You've been underestimated and came out with purpose. So let them wonder, let them doubt, let them whisper. You keep walking, you keep rising. You keep standing in your truth like a mountain that refuses to move. Because no matter what they say, no matter how they try to twist your story, you are already defined and you are not for sale. Every time you look in the mirror, I want you to see more than your reflection. I want you to see your foundation. Your identity isn't in your image, it's in your essence. It's not about what they see. It's about what you believe. When your identity is anchored, you don't crumble under pressure. You don't lose yourself in crowds. You don't beg for seats at tables you were never meant to sit at. You build your own. You stop trying to blend in and you start showing up. You start choosing alignment over acceptance. You speak the truth even when it costs you. You stay rooted even when it's lonely, because identity is lonely sometimes. Not everyone will understand your stance. Not everyone will clap for your clarity, but that's okay. You weren't created to be common. You were created to be complete. So stop hiding, start honoring. You are not lacking. You are whole. Own that. If they don't know who they are, they'll try to question who you are. But when your identity is solid, you don't flinch. You don't fold. You don't fight to prove. You just live in your truth, and that truth speaks for itself. You move like a person who's been chosen, not just liked. You walk like someone who's found purpose in the quiet, not just popularity in the crowd. You love yourself not because you're perfect, but because you're real. And being real in a world full of filters is a radical act. That's why you keep standing even when others fall. You keep growing even when they stay stagnant, because your identity isn't rooted in applause. It's rooted in awareness. You know your value. You know your vision. You know your voice. And no matter how loud the world gets, you never let it drown out that inner truth. That's what makes you unshakable. When a person truly commands fear and respect without saying a word, it's never about dominance. It's about presence. It's about mastering the silent language of strength, self-respect, and authenticity. Every step you take, every look you give, every moment you choose silence over reaction, it all speaks volumes. You don't need to shout to be heard when your soul is already loud. You don't need to prove anything to anyone when your life becomes the proof. From the energy you carry to the discipline in your movement, to the fire in your eyes and the thunder in your voice, when you finally speak, it all aligns with the truth you've built deep inside. This isn't just about how others see you. This is about how you see yourself. You've learned to be silent, but not absent. You've chosen to let your eyes speak instead of your mouth. You've decided to move with purpose, not noise. And when you speak, you make it count. You speak like thunder because you don't waste your breath on nonsense. You've become unshakable in your identity, not because life hasn't tried to break you, but because you refuse to lose yourself when it did. That's what makes you a force. That's what earns fear from the weak and respect from the wise. So from this moment forward, carry yourself like someone who's already chosen. Let the way you stand, the way you pause, the way you remain calm in chaos, tell the world, you know who you are. You don't chase attention, you draw it. You don't follow crowds, you walk your path. You don't need noise to leave a mark, you just need truth, purpose, and unwavering self-respect. Don't dilute your fire for anyone. Don't shrink just to fit. Don't explain your silence. It is the echo of someone who knows their worth. Your stillness has power, your presence has weight, and when you choose to speak, let your voice shake the ground beneath you. Thank you for walking with me through this truth. May your journey forward be bold, silent when it needs to be, and thunderous when it must. Stay grounded, stay focused, and never forget your identity is your greatest power. God bless you. Stay strong, stay silent, and keep commanding the room without a single word.